The book we are reading is Classic Starts Pinocchio, retold from the Carlo Collodi original by Tanya Zamorsky. Chapter 3. On new feet, Pinocchio sets off to school. With his belly full, Pinocchio could now concentrate entirely on, and cry about, his poor burned feet. To punish him for his bad behavior, Geppetto let Pinocchio cry for a while. Finally, he said, I could make you new feet, but why should I? So you can just run away again? I won't run away, Pinocchio said, sniffling. I'll be good from now on. I'll go to school and do my homework. I'll learn a trade and take care of you in your old age. I promise. Geppetto tried to look stern, but his eyes filled with tears. He couldn't stand to see Pinocchio suffer. So, taking his tools and 2 pieces of wood, he got to work. A few minutes later, 2 beautiful new wooden feet sat on the table. They were even stronger and faster than the first pair. Taking a bit of glue, Geppetto attached his new feet to Pinocchio's burned stumps. He did this so skillfully you could barely tell that the legs were not made from 2 solid pieces of wood. Whole again, Pinocchio immediately leaped off the table and started to skip and jump around. To show you how grateful I am, he cried, I'm going to use my new feet to run straight to school. But first, I need some new clothes. Poor Geppetto had no money for new clothes, so he made his son a stylish suit out of pretty paper. Taking some tree bark, he made a sharp pair of shoes. Finally, with a bit of bread dough, he made Pinocchio a dashing little cap. Why, I look like a proper gentleman, Pinocchio cried as he admired himself in the mirror. But there is one important thing I still need. What is it? Geppetto asked. A workbook to learn my ABCs. Geppetto realized Pinocchio was right. I have no money, he said sadly, and a workbook is not as easy to make as a cap. Pinocchio's face fell. Seeing Pinocchio look so disappointed was very hard for Geppetto. He quickly pulled on his coat and left the house. A few minutes later Geppetto was back. In his hands was a workbook, but he was no longer wearing his old coat. Instead, he stood in his short-sleeved shirt. I was hot, Geppetto explained, shivering violently. Oh, father, Pinocchio said, realizing Geppetto sold his coat for the book. Running over to his father, Pinocchio kissed him again and again. The next morning, Pinocchio couldn't wait to go to school. He was so excited about all of the things he was going to learn. Soon I'll be smart enough to earn a lot of money and buy my father a new coat. And it won't be just any old coat. It'll be a gold and silver coat with diamond buttons. Even as he thought this, though, he heard the sound of pipes and drums coming from the distance. Pie, 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 the pipes and drums called. Bum, dum, bum. Pinocchio hesitated. He promised to go to school, but the sounds were so tempting. How could he resist finding out where they were coming from? He decided he couldn't stay away from the music. I'll go to school tomorrow, he told himself. What's one more day? On his brand new feet, Pinocchio ran toward the sounds until he reached a large plaza. There he saw a tiny wooden building painted in brilliant colors. What's in there? Pinocchio asked a little boy standing next to him. Can't you read? The boy asked, pointing to a sign on the door. Having skipped school, however, Pinocchio couldn't. Not today, he replied. It says Great Puppet Theater, dummy, the boy said, and the show's about to start. Other puppets just like him putting on a show? Pinocchio was crazy with curiosity. How much is a ticket? He asked. 4 pennies. But Pinocchio didn't have even 1 penny. Will you lend me the money? Not today, the boy replied. I'll sell you my coat. And what would I do with your paper coat? The boy scoffed. When it rains, it'll turn to glue. I'll sell you my shoes, Pinocchio said, trying again. For what? The boy replied. To light a fire with? What about my hat? Pinocchio asked. That might be all right if my pet mouse needs a snack. Pinocchio took a deep breath. There was only one other thing he had to offer. But could he? After his freezing cold father had made such a warm and loving sacrifice? Pinocchio decided he could. I'll sell you my brand new workbook, he said. The boy refused, but an old man sitting nearby heard the offer and accepted. He knew he could sell the book to buy a nice new coat for himself. Pinocchio quickly made the exchange. With the pennies in his hand and his father's sacrifice already forgotten, he ran toward the theater's entrance to buy a ticket. When Pinocchio entered the theater, the show had already started. 2 puppets named Harlequin and Punchinello were on stage, acting out a fight. They punched each other and called each other names, while the audience pointed and laughed. Suddenly Harlequin stopped talking and pointed out into the audience. He had spotted Pinocchio. Punchinello saw him as well. There's a puppet in the audience, she screamed, sitting like a proper person. When the other puppets heard this, they all came streaming on stage to see. "Come join us," Harlequin shouted. With a giant leap and one helpful bounce off the orchestra leader's head, Pinocchio landed on the stage. Oh, how the puppets embraced their puppet brother! The audience, however, was angry that the play had been interrupted. They began to yell and grumble, demanding their money back. Hearing the commotion, the theater director came out of his office. He was terribly scary looking, with a long black beard and a pair of mean eyes that glowed like two red coals. In his huge hairy hands he held a long whip made of green snakes and black cats' tails twisted together. He swung the whip around through the air in a threatening way. The puppets froze, trembling like leaves in a violent storm. "The show must go on," the director yelled, and the puppets immediately went back into character. Pinocchio started to walk away too, but the director grabbed him by the collar. "Not so fast," he said. "You caused me quite a bit of trouble today, and you're going to have to pay for it." The director hung Pinocchio on a nail by the back of his coat. The puppet wiggled like a worm. After the curtain went down, the director walked back into the theater's kitchen, where a leg of lamb, his dinner, was slowly roasting on the spit. Although it was still only morning, the leg was so big it needed to cook all day, but the fire underneath the lamb was dying. The director needed more wood to finish cooking his food. He liked his lamb well done. The director told Harlequin and Puncholino to take Pinocchio down off the nail and bring him into the kitchen. The two theater puppets obeyed. "Oh, someone help me!" Pinocchio cried as they presented him to the director. "I don't want to die, or my poor father will be heartbroken." The director hesitated. Thinking about the fact that the piece of wood intended for the fire had a father, the director found it hard to throw it in the pit. He imagined how sad Geppetto would be, and let Pinocchio go. All of the puppets breathed a sigh of relief, but there was still the matter of the director's half-cooked lamb. "You," he cried, pointing to Harlequin instead. "You'll do." The director moved to throw the other puppet on the fire. Everyone, most especially himself. Throwing himself at the director's feet, he begged for him to take pity on Harlequin. "Take me instead," he cried. Everyone waited, holding their breath. "Oh, fine," the director finally said, shrugging. "I suppose tonight I shall have to eat my lamb rare." What a relief. Chapter 4. Pinocchio Meets Fox and Cat. The next morning the director sent Pinocchio off with well wishes and 5 pieces of gold. He had given Pinocchio the gold after the puppet described how poor Geppetto had sold his only coat. "Goodbye, fellow puppets," Pinocchio cried, and set off for home. A few steps down the road he met a lame fox and a blind cat walking arm in arm. "Good morning, Pinocchio," Fox said. "How do you know my name?" the puppet asked. "We know your father as well. We saw him just yesterday shivering in his shirt sleeves." "Oh, poor father!" Pinocchio cried. "Well, after today he will shiver no longer. I have become a rich man." Thinking Pinocchio a poor, silly puppet, Cat and Fox just laughed. "Stop laughing at me," Pinocchio said angrily. "I can prove it." And with that he took the gold pieces out of his pocket and revealed them. At the sight of the gold, the 2 interesting things happened next. First, the supposedly lame fox reached out his paw. Then the supposedly blind cat opened his eyes wide with excitement and greed. The paw and the eyes returned so quickly to their original conditions, however, that Pinocchio did not notice. "So what do you plan to do with your money?" Fox asked casually. "I'm going to buy a new coat for my father and a new workbook for myself," Pinocchio said. "Then I can study." "Are you sure you want to do that?" Fox asked grimly. "Studying made me lame." "Studying made me blind," Cat added. A blackbird perched on a fence nearby started to say something that sounded like a warning, but in the blink of a not-so-blind eye, the cat leaped up and ate him, feathers and feet and all. "Why did you do that?" Pinocchio asked, alarmed. "That bird talked too much," Cat said. Not unlike a certain cricket, Pinocchio thought. "And how did you do that, if you are blind?" Pinocchio asked. "Oh, just lucky," Cat replied. "You can be lucky too," Fox told the puppet. "You can turn your 5 pieces of gold into 2,000. "How?" Pinocchio breathed. "Come with us to the city of simpletons," Fox replied. Pinocchio's face fell. "I can't," he said. "Father's been waiting for me. Cricket was right. Children who do not listen cannot be happy in this world." "Nonsense," Fox said. Pinocchio hesitated. He had to ask, "How can 5 pieces possibly become 2,000? And so Cat and Fox explained that just outside the city of simpletons there was a magical field called the Field of Wonders. If you went there at dawn, dug a hole, and buried a gold piece, and then watered it well and sprinkled it with a pinch of salt, the gold piece would grow into a beautiful tree whose leaves and flowers were glittering gold pieces. Pinocchio was filled with hope. Forgetting his father, the new coat, the workbook, and all his good resolutions, he told his new friends, "Let's go." Cat and Fox and Puppet walked a long time, but the Field of Wonders was far away and night was setting in. When they came to an inn called the Inn of the Red Shrimp, Fox suggested they stop to eat and rest. "At midnight we'll start out again, for at dawn tomorrow we must be at the field." Cat felt very weak and was able to eat only 35 sardines with tomato sauce and 4 helpings of spaghetti with butter and cheese. Fox was fat, and his doctor had put him on a diet, so he had to be satisfied with a sweet and sour rabbit and a dozen young and tender spring chickens, and a few partridges, and some pheasants, and a dozen frogs and lizards. But that was all. When supper was over, Fox asked the innkeeper for 2 rooms so the group could take a nap. "And give us a wake-up call at midnight," Fox said. "Yes, sir," the innkeeper said. Once in his room, Pinocchio immediately fell into a deep sleep, full of fantastic dreams of magical gold-filled fields. Just as Pinocchio was about to reach out and grab the gold in his dream, he was awakened by 3 loud knocks at the door. It was the innkeeper. "Cat and Fox left 2 hours ago," he said. "Cat was called home to an emergency. They said that you agreed to pay for supper," he added. "They did?" Pinocchio asked. Perhaps he had agreed, although he couldn't remember doing so. "Where did they say they would meet me?" "At the Field of Wonders at sunrise. You better start walking now." Pinocchio paid 1 gold piece for the 3 suppers and the 2 rooms and headed out. It was very hard going. It was dark and he didn't have any directions. A few bats skimmed his nose now and again and scared him half to death. Once or twice he shouted, "Who goes there?" and the faraway hills echoed back at him, "Who goes there? Who goes there? Who goes there?" Suddenly Pinocchio noticed a tiny insect sitting on the trunk of a nearby tree, glowing strangely in the moonlight. Pinocchio asked. Then he realized it was the talking cricket. Pinocchio shivered. Cricket looked almost ghostly, or at least like a firefly glowing in the dark. "I want to give you a few words of advice. Return home and give the 4 gold pieces you have left to your father, who misses you terribly." "But Cricket," Pinocchio insisted, "tomorrow I will make father a rich man, for these 4 remaining pieces will become thousands." "There is no such thing as overnight wealth, my boy. Go home." "But I want to go on," Pinocchio insisted. "What did I once tell you about disobedient boys?" Cricket asked. "The same nonsense you're telling me now," Pinocchio replied. "You still talk too much. Goodbye." "Goodbye, Pinocchio," Cricket said, "and good luck escaping the danger that awaits you." "What danger?" Pinocchio wondered out loud. But Cricket's light was gone, as if someone had blown out a candle. The road was once again pitch black and lonely. And that concludes Chapter 4. We hope you are enjoying our chapter a week story. Call again every week for a new chapter.